Hello, how everybody is doing? I am Osorio. I head the cloud engineering department here at Amplitude, also known as DevOps team. So for today, this is kind of what we'll go through in this presentation. A little bit, I will talk to you a little bit about Amplitude, the engineering culture here at Amplitude and the DevOps team. Then we will go into how to build or things that we think are important, building a healthy DevOps culture, and then how to use progress, how to use projects to improve this culture. And we'll wrap up with some of the current projects that we're doing and some of the challenges ahead. So a bit about Amplitude. Jeffrey already mentioned some of the goals that we do. Our key mission is to help companies build better products. Right? We want to make sure that our users are having the best experience. Right now, we have in the order of 12,000 companies using our platform, about 7 trillion lifetime users actions tracked, and a lot of new events per second and very nice query response. So the product teams that are using us can get to the insights. How does this translate into the engineering effort? We have a footprint of about 1,500 EC2 instances, about 2 petabytes of searchable data coming out of all of these customers over the past few years. 50 services that our engineers have done that we manage. This is about, and the engineering team is about 26 engineers. Out of those, 2 of us are DevOps engineers, which manage the whole infrastructure. On the bottom, you can see some of our customers. They go from like very large tech companies like Microsoft and Samsung to large non-tech companies that are realizing that the product teams and the digital presence matter, like Adidas, and to smaller startups and other successful startups. So, just to start, the engineering culture here is something that we value a lot and that we think is a key driver for the success that we've had so far. Some of the operating principles for what we have done is to always make sure that we're killing a pain. So any time that we're working on an issue, we make sure that we're understanding the customer pain, what is happening, why they need to have the issue fixed, and that we're working on that. We value velocity a lot and shipping fast. So when we are working on DevOps initiatives, we want to make sure to preserve that velocity of our engineering team. And again, our engineering team's ability to experiment, test ideas quickly, and deliver code with high quality, fast, and not get on the way. And transparency, that we're able to audit and see what everybody's doing. We are able to understand what other teams are working on and how we impact the organization as a whole. Right? Again, on the side of the engineering values, ship fast, on the product experience, make sure that the customers are having the best experience that they can. And make sure that we're delivering the most amount of impact possible, right? So the DevOps team is part of this engineering culture. We adhere by all these principles. So when we are working on projects, we have to make sure that we're doing things on this manner. And the key goal of the way that I see the team of DevOps here at Amplitude is that we need to increase developer productivity and happiness. Meaning we want to make developers' lives as easy as possible and make sure that we're using our infrastructure resources as efficiently as we can, right? And that we give all users a great experience by building resilience into what we're doing. So, on the topic of building a healthy DevOps culture, there is a lot of talks and slide decks and books on how to do this and how to approach it, or what things are important from a theoretical standpoint. On this talk, I would like to just have this one slide where I explain some of the things that I think are important for it, like, and then we will dig into some of the projects that we have done and how they actually exemplify this idea, right? So the rules of building a healthy DevOps culture is that every project should improve your DevOps culture. So when you're doing a project, keep in the back of your mind, how is this going to affect my developers' ability to actually deliver code, my developers' ability to use the tools that I'm introducing, and how will this new work be received, right? You have to identify key areas for improvement that are true pain points. You have to go out, talk to developers, talk to PMs, talk to designers, understand what they are doing from day to day, what are the things that they are spending a lot of time on, what are the things that they are frustrated about, and then prioritize those to be able to be effective. Then you have to communicate effectively with them about the improvements that you're doing, how will this affect their workflow, how will this affect their day-to-day activities, and make sure to invest in documentation, right? Make sure that whenever you introduce a new technology, you don't all of a sudden become the bottleneck for your developers to deploy code or to make changes, that you automatically, as part of the project that you are doing, you schedule the time to train developers, to write documentation, to disseminate the knowledge, so other people can do things that you're enabling them to do, and you don't become the bottleneck that everybody is throwing things at, right? So on the downside is, again, if you have introduced a new technology, a new procedure, and then a development team is like, hey, can you do this for us? It's like, I could, but then you lose an opportunity to teach and up-level this team on the technology that you have introduced, and it just kind of perpetuates this sense of like they can just send you tasks, you will execute them for them, instead of actually being an organization that leads the change and then disseminates the knowledge. Right? Avoid silos, and do not let your DevOps team become the bottleneck of your engineering organization. So now we will go into the practical aspects of these things. What has happened in Amplitude that has aligned with this that I just talked to you about? Right? It's very easy to just pontificate on some principles. Here is the projects that we have led that have aligned with this training. Just to start, to give you a reference point, this is the Amplitude stack. Sorry, this should be before VPC migration. This is maybe a year and a half ago, where we were living in EC2 Classic. We have Jenkins for continuous integration. We have Datadog for monitoring, Console for service discovery, Vault for secrets management, and Salt stack for configuration management. Right? This is pretty standard stack that you would see in any in the startup. Now we are a little bit lagging behind because we were still on EC2 Classic. We have not moved into the VPC because of the large number of services and the amount of effort that we will have to incur to be able to move that. So the first project that I want to talk about is this VPC migration. Right? The project was VPC migration. It had some very clear pain points associated with them. First one is that it was hard to secure the environment. For those of you that are familiar with EC2 Classic, the only way to keep your services or your instances secure is through security groups. It's very easy to mess that up, or somebody to change it in a way that they did not expect, and to have the sudden expose your whole infrastructure or the large part of your infrastructure to the internet, which can be very scary. You are getting stuck on all the resources. The newer resources did not launch on EC2 Classic. They were VPC only, a lot of the new AWS features. And the old services had as well a higher cost. So we identified this as a big pain point of what we wanted to do. We said we have to move out of the EC2 Classic and onto the VPC, and then we executed, right? So we systematically moved services while using Classic Link. We were able to show the value that we were adding to the company every time we move a single service. We could put the new service, show the new instances that it's using, how good it's performing, how the money that we're saving. Every time we did a move, there was our ability for us to report how we're impacting the organization, right? And we've had some very clear benefits. We now have a well-defined EMC, easy to secure our services. We have access to these AWS features that before were not available to us. And we also created multiple VPCs, and then we were able to segregate development from staging from production. Right? in addition to doing this, when we were thinking about this project, we decided to introduce a set of tools, right? Moving or infrastructure could have been done manually, and then we would have ended up just inside the VPC, but with not much else, right? In this case, the decision was done that this was the right point to start introducing Terraform, and start using Terraform as for infrastructure as code, right? We developed Terraform code to cover a large part of our infrastructure. Then we used Terraform to move it into the VPC, and we wrote documentation and train development teams on how to use Terraform effectively to create new resources, right? So at the end of this first project, now we are on a very similar stack, but there are two new areas approaching, right? Two new areas are showing up on our stack. First one, we can see that we're on the VPC, and we have a very clear DMC of the things that can be accessed from outside. But at the same time, as part of this project, we have introduced this concept of infrastructure as code, and started laying the foundation for us to use Terraform to create all our resources programmatically. Right? So this was well received. Our engineers started learning Terraform, and I will elaborate a little bit more on that on a further project. This project, the VPC migration project, was completed. Then we moved on to a different one, and we realized that our testing environments were not really up to snuff. Like the people were, we had the automation to run our testing suites automatically after every merge to master. The developers were complaining that this is a little bit too late to run our tests. I can run them in my machine, but they don't really run like Jenkins. Every time I commit, I'm not certain whether I will break the build or not. So the next pain point to address is this confidence of committing something to master with the knowledge that you will not break the build. How do we approach that? Is by using the mechanism on GitHub that when you do a PR request, you can send a webhook to Jenkins to execute a build of that pre-merge code, and then report the results and populate that in the pull request, so you can see it before you merge it to master, right? So the direct benefits of this work was to again, increase the developer confidence on what they have written and the merge it to master. They also made core reviews a little bit easier in the sense that you knew that the change that you were looking at was not going to break any tests. So you have your assumption of like, will this work or will this not, was this tested or not? It went away. Now you knew that this code at least had been tested by the automation, and then you could just focus on the more important aspects of the code review, right? We populated again, as we see on the top, on back to GitHub, and then we can say to the reviewer, yes, this code passed the tests. Now, at the same time, we could have just stopped at that, configured it manually, and set it up working. But we identified this project as a prime candidate to push our DevOps culture to introduce declarative pipelines with Jenkins files, right? So when we started creating these tests, we used Jenkins files to set them up, to define them. That way, when developers were adding and modifying these tests, they were using the Jenkins files to declare their testing strategy, right? This enabled us to gain a lot of the developer adoption into the PRs and into the way that we want to handle a Jenkins configuration, right? So we got this added value from this part. In this case, we can see we got a little plus, a little up level on our Jenkins utilization, right? We got a little bit better at one. So the next one, the next project was log aggregation. So we get to we finish the PR builds, and the next pain point that people were having is that we're using more and more of the scaling groups. We are having larger systems. We're using multiple environments. We have dev, production, staging. We are accessing all of these different machines. When there is an error, I do not know where to find my logs. There was different groups manage their logs differently. The format was different. We have multiple languages. The format of those logs were different. So it was a little bit messy for developers to figure out how to access logs efficiently, where to find them, how to troubleshoot them, how to parse them. Right? So this is a big pain point. It's like developers cannot access logs efficiently. Again, direct benefits of actually addressing this issue by picking a log aggregator, in our case Datadog, was that now there is a higher amount of confidence when troubleshooting services, right? The quote on the bottom is one of our engineers where he's actually sending us a Slack message about it, right? He said, it gives me a lot more confidence that we can make sense of what's going on across the stack. It also helps me investigate those one-off, impossible to reproduce errors that customers occasionally come to us with. Right? This is the feedback that we want to get from our engineering organization if we are to push this type of tools as a whole. Right? If we want to push the culture as a whole. Again, the advance of this project in the DevOps journey was that we standardized a way to handle logs without getting a lot of pushback about the work that we were going to do, because they're getting something new and shiny, and that is helpful for the day-to-day. And we actually invested the time on writing the documentation and doing training of the engineers. So we, as a DevOps team, only had to onboard a few critical services, show the value, and then when somebody else sees and interacts with those logs and comes back and tells me, hey, can you onboard my service? I would like to get advantage of this as well. Then you can just point it to the documentation and say, hey, yeah, we can definitely advise you how to onboard your own service, and then have them work their way and learn how to do it, right? So now, new developers that are coming are able to look at the documentation that we created as part of this project and onboard their own stuff. And we get a lot of leverage out of having completed this feature. So again, we're looking back at our stack after the titles on this slide are funky, but this is after the log aggregation. Now we have leveled up our Datadog usage. Before, we only used to use it for monitoring. Now we use it for monitoring and log aggregation. We can actually compare both of the look at events and look at metrics at the same time that we're looking at the logs that have happened during that time period. Right? So this really increased our ability to troubleshoot things. One more step on our DevOps journey. The next one, and the last one that I want to talk about, is a project that is still in progress, and that we're getting a lot of value out of it, and it's that we have customers that are in the European Union. They're using our services, and right now, some of our customers are okay with us warehousing the data here in the US. Some of them are not, and they are more not as happy to sign contracts with us without having the data in the European region. So we have decided to open a NIA data center. Now, the assumption of Amplitude as a whole stack is that we only have one data center. Now we have to remove that assumption from the system, create a whole new data center, and then enable it for production, right? So the approach that we're taking with this is, one, this is a big problem. Doing this it has to remove the assumption, has to create a lot of infrastructure that we're not sure that we can even create from the code to begin with, because we import it into Terraform. So we are breaking it into smaller projects. The first one is refactoring our Terraform code. The goal of it is to actually be able to create a full Amplitude environment from scratch on an automated fashion. This can be a staging environment, a testing environment, but this will let us exercise the ability to actually create an environment and be confident that we can do it for a new one or in case there is a disaster, right? This will require us to actually refactor our code, increase our coverage first, to make sure that everything is included into this Terraform code. Second, refactor it in such a way that it will let us template it for different environments. And the third part that we can do on this is actually also when we're refactoring, keep in mind usability. When we first used Terraform 1 year ago, we had almost no experience with it. We did some things that were not the most optimal way to organize things. This is the opportunity to go back in and fix it, write the documentation on how to use the new modules that we want to use, that we want to expose to the rest of the company, and then make it easier and faster to adopt for developers to start writing their own Terraform code based on the modules that we are providing them, right? So, by the way, we also wrote an automated tool to measure Terraform code coverage of AWS resources that does not require tagging. So just looks at all of the IDs and then compares with the state files and can let us monitor if anything has been created outside of Terraform in our AWS infrastructure. So after the Terraform refactor, the way that our system will look like, it will now up level for Terraform as well. Right? Before we already had it, it was hard to use. Developers have to spend a lot of time and it took a large cognitive load to be able to use it. Now, after 1 year of learnings and playing with it and lots of frustrations, we know how to structure it better. We can refactor it and then teach our developers how to be efficient with it. Right? So now, just a couple of slides on looking to the future. The stuff that we're working on the projects that are coming up is we have right now a pain around deployments. We use Docker, we combine with SaltStack to deploy containers. This doesn't allow us to use blue-green deployments, doesn't allow us to use canaries, it causes some problems when you're restarting these other containers. We would like to move on to the continuous deployment using Spinnaker and Kubernetes. There is probably going to be a lot of learnings and a lot of ways that we can push the DevOps culture in the organization forward with these projects, and it's something that we're very much looking forward to. Right. So kind of just to wrap up, some of the challenges ahead is one, scaling from 50 to 100 engineers. As you heard earlier from Jeffrey, we're growing a lot. Amplitude is doing very well. Unfortunately, we have the resources to grow our team. Now, with 2 DevOps engineers, that also gets a little bit hard. So we also have to scale the DevOps team. Right? We have to be able to drive more initiatives, leverage the abilities that we have to train our engineers better to be able to drive this culture and not to lose it. Brand new Kubernetes world, lots of new failure nodes and things to learn, and just getting to play with it and see break. Supercharging our delivery pipeline. As I mentioned earlier, Spinnaker will let us do continuous delivery, will let us do canaries and automated environment promotion. It will let us have more trust into what we are trying to deliver, and it will remove the burden of babysitting a push to production, right? And then balancing the future of the team. We want to grow the team, but at the same time we want to keep it clean. We don't want to spark to get to the point that people are just shooting tickets at us and then we're just doing them instead of actually kind of like being subject matter experts that lead the change and educate the rest of the team. We want to keep it clean, and we always want to maximize impact. Right? So now I want to open for questions.
No, we have time just for one because we are a bit over.
Oh, sorry.
Afterwards, you can talk to.